Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, September 10th, 2024, 5:17 p.m. And with a quorum of members present, I will be calling the Finance Committee to order. Item number one on our agenda is minutes of the previous meeting. That's from August 27th, 2024. Minutes should be in the packet. Any questions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to accept. A motion from Killian. Second from Tierney. Discussion? Not seeing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Item number two, discussion and possible action on the extension of the ARPA subrecipient agreement with Catholic Charities. And information, there's some information on this on our packet, but I know we've had previous extensions with the subrecipient agreement, so it sounds like we're just going to extend the timeline out to 2026. So Tammy, I don't know if you got anything to fill us in on that, or?
Good evening. Not really. Everything's in the memo. We're just taking the money that's left over and extending it out so that they continue to do the day services and the warming shelter 365, starting October 1st to March 31st, whatever their typical warming center time frame is. We do not use the ARPA funds because that is their typical funding purposes anyway. So the ARPA funds was to extend it for year round.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we're not allocating any additional money to them, but we're
Correct.
just giving them a longer timeline in order to spend what we've already allocated.
Correct.
So, okay, Alder Killian?
Yeah, I just wondered, you have the last statement in your memo.
That's, yeah, you want to check your microphone?
Because of the statement in your memo addressing staffing or other issues, are you aware of anyone at Catholic Charities who is resigning or who is intending to resign?
Not anymore, but we did receive a shock that previous now, local director of the warming shelter, his last day was last Thursday.
Okay.
So they will have to fill that position again.
Okay, any idea about the cost of that position?
No idea. No, I don't know. And his portion wasn't reflected that much in either of these because there's people underneath him that actually ran these programs. So he was the oversight of it. So his hours weren't reflected in this grant as much as everybody else's were.
Okay, but you don't have any idea what the cost will be?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, that's not an eligible cost either for them to try to recruit.
Okay, Alder McElhaney?
So are there any contracts of what services they are going to give other than a 3 or 4 sentence memo from Roberto?
I guess I don't have that information. I know that they were upping their services. There was concern for the day center that it was only running for a couple of days, part-time, but they have come in full-time now. I don't know if, I'm not familiar of all the programs that they have running.
Okay, who does?
I don't know if the police chief does. You know the day center, what they're all doing?
I can speak to what I know.
Yeah.
So I'll preface this with, based on meetings I've had with them, which go back a ways, this is not current information, but that they bring as part of their programming during the day center. At our request, they've offered and created the opportunity for those individuals who didn't have the ability to be sheltered the night before, the ability to sleep while they're in there, the ability to shower and do those type of activities and get cleaned up, as well as bringing other community partners. I know that Tracy Rieger is one of those community partners that Of course, I'm having a senior moment now with all the other organizations that take time during the week. They might have an assigned day to go in there and kind of set up shop and be a resource. Whether that would fall in the category of programming as opposed to opportunity to meet with people in their facility, those might be two different things, but that's what I'm aware of occurring at this time.
I guess, I mean, this is a lot of money. We've had issues this past year. I'm just wondering, is there any benchmarks, anything that they have to meet to get those? I've seen some of the invoices. It's hours, FICA tax, that's all I'm seeing. So, and then some incidentals. I'm just wondering if there's any, I mean, this is a lot of money, it's taxpayer money, and I'm wondering if there's any benchmarks that need to be, any type of oversight beyond the bills coming in for either of these programs.
I can say that the agreement that we have in place, thanks, just asked that they open a 24 or a day center, 365, and we didn't talk about specific programming, but that we wanted a place for this population to be able to go during the day so that they would not be hindering other businesses, libraries, stuff like that. So we do work with them to make sure they're open, but there's no requirement of programming.
Okay. Do we know where the shelter is going to be?
Right now, it's staying where it is.
So it is at CPC?
Correct.
And what is their capacity, 35
I
yet?
believe so, except for emergencies.
It's 30, and
30?
then they go over during heat or cold emergencies. I mean, I think to your point, Alderwoman McElhaney, I would be the first one to say there is absolutely room to grow in programming and in services provided at the day center. You and I have had conversations about that. I think we both know that. What I think is a fair measurable, I'm not here with data to be able to provide that to you, is to look at their daily census data. During the first conversation that we had about the effectiveness of that with them many, many months ago, was being open 2 days a week and having a census of 2 people coming in to receive services per day was not good enough for the amount of money that the city was spending. I know that number has gone up. I just don't know what it is. But I think that's an absolute measurable. We are looking for a place for people to be. And what that number is something that, as a policy body, I think it's appropriate that you set. And then if we have to find a way for city staff to validate or verify that information, that Catholic Charities provides it to us. We get to see a daily census. It's generally reported in Tracy Rieger's report during Public Health and Safety, which will be reported Monday. So to measure the effectiveness of a program is very hard from the outside looking in. But a number that's very easy to measure is if we want a place with air conditioning and heat and a place for people to be during the day to do some of those human activities that we all take for granted, coming up with a number that they're serving. And if they can't get people to come there up to the number that this policy body thinks is appropriate, then I think this policy body needs to look elsewhere or make other determinations.
Okay, I do know when we had the committee of the whole about a month ago, when we were talking about these, the unhoused issues, the Catholic Charities did provide daily census data for us up to that point in time. So the information would be in those, in that record if you were looking for, I guess, numbers. So, Alder Killian?
I'm just wondering, do we have any awareness of what kind of guidelines that there are for people to be allowed in during the day? I talked to you, Matt, about an experience we had with a woman a short while ago, and we offered to take her there, and she said, they won't take me. She was hesitant to go there. So I'm wondering if what's being presented to people is that the guidelines are so strict that they're uncomfortable coming there.
I
That
mean,
was my only experience, so I'm just,
sure, and I can't say that I had an experience like that, but that was an issue that was addressed with them when I referenced this meeting, that when we called them into the police department to talk to them about their performance. And the issue we addressed is to not be so stringent in your rules that you're not attractive to people who have nothing to be utilizing your services. I think some of those things have changed, but I'm also an advocate, not necessarily for their rules, but there have to be rules in place as far as behavior and not interfering with the activities of the other businesses. And both the CPC and Catholic Charities, unfortunately, have to ban, I don't know that that's necessarily the right word, but there are people that are put on restrictions, which is you're not available to use our facility for a period of time based on your behavior while you were here. What wasn't okay for us was, you're not willing to sit down with this person we're telling you have to sit down with because they're here on a Wednesday. So if you're not going to do that, you have to leave. Those were the type of barriers that we addressed with them, and we received some commitments that they were going to make changes, and it's my understanding that they have. But there is definitely a list of individuals, and it's two separate lists. One is CPC, and one is Catholic Charities. And those lists aren't identical, but both end up dealing with individuals whose behavior, that's their only consequence for their actions. So I'm supportive of holding people accountable for their behavior when they're there, but also not to a degree that it disincentivizes other individuals from utilizing those services or giving it a shot.
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion. Alder Tierney?
I make a motion that we carry over those funds.
Okay. A motion from Tierney and a second from Gisselman. Discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor?
I would just say
Oh,
for
go ahead.
clarification, then
Yeah.
we would have to amend the contract.
Correct.
And
Bring
it
that
would
back.
go through council to encumber the funds.
Okay. But that's something we would do at the council level. We wouldn't have to amend the contract here, would we?
Well, if you want to incorporate it in your motion, I think that would make it cleaner.
Okay.
I guess I have another question, then. Should have this started at Public Health and Safety?
Well, I would guess my recommendation, and that doesn't mean anything, is because of the ARPA funds started at finance, so that's why we brought it back to finance, because it's the ARPA funds. Does that?
Yeah, but we're extending a contract, and that started at
But this
Public
is-
Health and Safety.
Did the ARPA funds for this?
I don't know.
I believe-
Can look at that.
I
No idea.
the ARPA specific, yeah, funding,
Right, but
Which
I
would have been
guess
finance.
anything with, Public Health and Safety really does encumber everything with this contract, and this, that's where it started. I'm just saying, I don't mind, I'll vote on this tonight, but I think that they need to be looped in on this as well.
well, then maybe the contract amendment needs to go through public health and safety because that's not really our domain.
Right, exactly.
But doesn't ARPA, and I'm not trying to argue, I just don't want to misstep,
Uh-huh.
but it's the ARPA funds that we are extending. So to me, that's finance.
But I think we've kind of fell into two issues here. The ARPA funding, extending the ARPA funding, but then also needs to be a contract amendment. So,
If I understand you correctly, I'm going to draw the analogy with positions, and we went through that with this council a while back. So what you'd like public health and safety to do is to say, there is a desire and a need for an extended period of time to provide day center and night shelter, and then refer it to the finance committee to allocate the funding, which would be extending the ARPA dollars, and then to take the whole shebang to the council to vote on as a whole. Am I, okay.
We can, if Tierney is amenable, she can amend her motion to, so that the ARPA allocation is contingent upon the contract extension through public health and safety. And then it doesn't have to come back to finance again.
Less meetings.
Yeah. If that's okay with you. Okay, and Gary, you're, okay, okay. So then, I guess, any other discussion? Okay, so a motion is been made and seconded to extend the, extend the ARPA subsipient agreement, the funding component of that with Catholic Charities contingent upon the rest of the extension approval through public health and safety. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Okay, good deal. That sounds like, I know that's a mouthful there, but we'll get it right. Item number 3. Discussion and possible action on the reprogramming of the 2020 Community Development Block Grant CARES 3 and the 2022 Community Development Block Grant HAMI Homes Elevator Project into the acquisition/housing development activity. And this usually comes to us, these reprogrammings usually come to us about every year or so as money doesn't get fully expended out of the block grant fund, so it needs to be put someplace else in order for us to use it in a timely fashion. So if I'm correct there with
You are
that.
absolutely correct. Yes, because of the leftover funds with the community development block grant funds, we have a timeliness factor of if projects don't get done in a timely manner, we need to reprogram those funds into a program that can spend the funds quicker. And it proves that there's a need versus why is this not happening now? So with the CARES funds, as the memo mentioned, we utilized quite a bit of funding to help small businesses, and I applaud McDevco for all the work that they did, but we do have about $43,000 left in that account. With that money, we have to utilize it for an ARPA or a COVID-19 product. We are hoping to utilize those funds for if we are able to do a multifamily affordable housing apartment complex, because affordable housing is ARPA related or COVID-19 related. So those funds would specifically go to that. And then the HAMI Homes was $83,000. They haven't been able to raise the additional funds that they needed in order to do the elevator, so we can take that back and put into acquisition to assist with acquiring additional parcels to do affordable housing.
Okay, any questions on that? Not hearing anything, I'll entertain a motion. Motion from Gisselman, second from Killian. Discussion? Okay, not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And item number 4, discussion and possible action on a sole source purchase request for contract with all city management service crossing guards for the Wausau Police Department. And this is an item, we've been using all city services for quite a few years now, if I recall. They've taken over the management of the crossing guard program. So this would be a renewal or extension of their contract. So Chief Barnes is here. He can fill us in with any of the other details, or if you've got any questions on that.
Yeah, just some of you have heard me speak to this before. Finding employees to work 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon, and the quantity of them proved to be incredibly difficult and time consuming for our staff from just a management standpoint. All city management has been providing crossing guard services for us for about 3 years. We're satisfied with their performance in it. It allows us to focus on police work as opposed to crossing guards. And then just a couple of things that are noteworthy in here is this is a partnership. When we went to all city management services, this school district began financially contributing to our partnership to be able to fund those crossing guards. And it's a weird percentage, but it's 29.75% of the overall cost annually is billed back to the Wausau School District. So our request is that we continue with them through the next school year.
Okay. Any discussion or questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Motion from Tierney?
Make a motion that we continue to use them as requests.
Okay, a sole source from All City, for All City Management, seconded by Killian. Discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Item number 6, or excuse me, item number 5, a discussion and possible action on the sole source purchase and budget modification for the new mechanical CPR devices for the Wausau Fire Department. And last month, we talked about the funding for the CPR devices, and now coming before us is the sole source purchase for that. So, Chief Kopp, got anything to add?
Yeah, this is nothing more than just with the help of our finance director finding some funding from a different line item, which would be 451 instead of ARPA funding. So same thing that we proposed to you guys at the last meeting. For this meeting, just a different funding source.
Different funding source, and then sole source purchase through, I think it was, Zoll Medical Corporation, so.
Yep.
Okay, any discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. A motion from Gisselman. A second. Anybody second? Second from Tierney. All right, discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. All right, one step closer. And that'll be on tonight's council agenda too. Item number 6, a discussion and possible action on ARPA funding update. So I'll turn it over to Mary Ann.
Yep, so there's not a lot of change since the last meeting. I think the biggest one I wanted to discuss is the funding for the firefighters. At the prior finance committee had made a positive decision to fund the community resource position through 2026. And so that went to council as a budget modification, saying we were going to fund Tracy Rieger's position through 2026. When they considered the 3 firefighters funded with ARPA, at that point, they didn't make a decision and put, I guess, a pin in it on the decision to fund it through 2025. So the funding would end at the end of 2024 for the firefighters currently. So I would be interested in, as you can see on the ARPA monitoring worksheet, there are funds that would be left over at the end of the year because it is running a bit behind due to staffing issues in the beginning to actually find positions. If you recall, council authorized 12 positions, 9 were from SAFER, 3 of them were funded from ARPA, and we would be short for 2025. Once you did the meter allocation of $800,000, there still is about $67,000 of ARPA money that has not been allocated yet. If you combine that with what's left over in the firefighter position, that would bring us down to about $35,000 short for 2025, based on our projections of payroll. So I was hoping that the committee could make a decision of whether you want to use the leftover firefighter money and make a budget mod for 25, that you're going to use that for those firefighter positions, as well as think about if you would be willing to use the leftover money that has not been allocated to any projects. And then we would go through and look if there's any other savings from any of the other lines, and we could get all 3 of those firefighters funded for 2025. The value to that is the 9 safer positions. Right now, the funding for the safer positions runs out February 6th of 2026. So they would be very close to then all of the positions, I guess, running out of grant funding at the same time. We are, as staff, looking at, because, levy limit prevents us from just increasing the levy for any reason. And we talked that we would have to have a referendum for increasing the levy to fund those 12 vacant positions. So we would be able to, I guess, count on the fact that all of them would need funding in 2026 versus some of them needing funding in 2025 and some of them needing funding in 2026. And when we look at the referendum rules, we will need to go this spring of 2025 for that referendum.
If we were going to if we were going to have a referendum to fund our firefighters, or to lift the levy limits to fund the firefighters.
Yes, for 2026.
For 2026.
Yeah, because there is no fall election in 2025, there's only spring elections.
Yep.
So really, they're the only time available to council, if you want to fund those through the levy in 2026, is to have the referendum in
Okay.
spring of 2025.
And I know that one of the concerns we had when we were going to use ARPA to fund these firefighters was to ramp them into the levy so that it wasn't a big hit at the end. But now it sounds like we're getting close to a big hit.
Well, right, it's hard to ramp them in. We had talked about ramping positions in, but we haven't been able to meet our levy limit requirements
Yep.
and pay all of our other bills that we have each year in the budget.
Okay, so I think I saw some questions here. Alder Killian?
Mary Ann, suppose we have a referendum and it fails. What happens then with these firefighters? I mean, realizing the value of firefighters to our city.
Right.
What do we do?
So you would have the option to reintroduce a question at the next election, which wouldn't happen until 2026. So you would have to take a look at other funding sources to finance those positions, whether that.
For
whether-
example, what would?
Well, we have, for example, the wheel tax that you could impose. You could look at funding it for a period of time from reserves to see if the next question would be an affirmative answer. But at some point, the 12 firefighters, if we assume $100,000 per person for salaries and benefits, is 1.2 million. I don't want to use the word impossible, but it's impossible to try to fit that into the budget with the current levy limit regulations. In talking to our financial advisors, they have mentioned that all over the state now, cities are going to referendum on public safety positions because, as our world changes, we need to, make an investment in public safety.
It feels, it feels like, considering the attitudes of residents now with taxes and water bills and so forth, that taking it to a referendum is probably a good idea. I think it would give the people a chance to say, I value the firefighters and want to do what we need to do to keep them, or no, I can't tolerate any more spending. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I think, the tax bills, by the time the referendum comes out, the tax bills will be out. So, obviously, some people will see an increase in their taxes, some people will see a decrease depending on if their property value went up more than average or less than average, basically, as along with how our budget for 2025 turns out. So people will know what that looks like. And we are just starting looking at what that question will be. But the levy limit rules don't look at whether you're a tax increment district, terminated, and so, the tax increment District 6 is terminating. In fact, we're going to be bringing a resolution to you in the next coming meetings to terminate that district. So taxpayers won't actually see, most likely, a big increase in their taxes for those firefighters, but we still have to ask the question, because the tax increment revenues that we generate are not considered general property tax levy, because it's a tax increment calculation. And so we will be able to explain that through education, but by law, we still would have to have a referendum to basically shift that levy from increment up to the general property tax. So I realize that it's a little complicated, but we'll, like we were hoping at the next meeting, we could kind of show you what those calculations look like and start the communication of, do you want to have a referendum? What would that question look like? And we have other positions that have been added through ARPA, like Tracy Riegers, the community resource, the 2 police officers that were added that are going to be funded by foundation money. You could do a referendum on those positions to see if you wanted to carry those forward as well. You can have more than one question on the ballot, so you could separate the firefighters from the law enforcement positions. Those would be all things to consider.
So if the TID is closing, that increment does not count, or does not factor into our levy limits. So
Right.
that means even though we have a referendum question, financially, the impact might be minimal, because that tax base is coming into.
Right, because it's no longer being allocated to the TID.
Yeah.
And that's really, like what they say the benefit of the tax increment districts is. But through the calculations on how TID and net new construction has changed over the years, now we just get a small uptick in our levy limit calculation when a TID expires.
But we still need to be able to increase our.
Yes.
Our budget,
Yeah.
our budget amount. So, Alder Tierney.
Thank you for that explanation. Now, with these 12 additional firefighters, have all 12 been hired, or?
Yeah, and Jeremy can come up and speak. It's been, I think, difficult, which is why we have money left in ARPA, is keeping that full staff recruited and in place.
Yeah, we've yet to come to that full new number. So our number would have been, previously before the 12 new firefighters was 62, going up to 74. The highest we've gotten to was 70. Right now, we're 6 short. We're at 68. We've lost some due to retirements, and we've lost some young ones that we put through the paramedic class a year ago to different departments. And unfortunately, we're doing things. I met with NTC today, and we're looking at different ways to recruit and to retain, but hopeful to get to that number. I dare I say by the end of this year, but next year. So.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Gissam, it looks like you have a question.
Well, I just think that we're starting to wander maybe is a better word, from our agenda item. I understand the ARPA request, and I didn't know if your request, Marianne, was for some action on that this evening, or because that's not agendized as such, but.
Right, I guess I was looking for advice or a direction, because like I said, the last finance committee put a pin on extending the funding of ARPA for that additional year. Most of the funding is there. So did you want to rank it again? Do you want us to prepare a budget amendment for your consideration at the next meeting? Again, if we don't fund them from ARPA, it's going to have to be part of the 2025 budget process, which is already going to be a tight exercise.
But I think an appropriate agenda for next meeting would be, then it's clearer exactly what we're voting for
Yeah.
and what the issue is.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
So maybe what we need is to, I guess we need, we've got 341, just under $341,000 that we need to allocate out of those firefighter positions. So maybe what we need is an agenda item for next meeting
For a budget mod?
for a budget mod.
Okay.
And,
Well, I can do that.
yeah.
And then we will have on the agenda for the next meeting, some discussions about a referendum.
Yeah, we will need to continue that discussion
Yep.
as a separate agenda item.
Okay.
Absolutely. Anything else on the ARPA requests? Otherwise, it looks like we're getting down there to the
Yes.
nitty gritty. So that's good. I didn't think we'd be able to spend it all. So,
One more thing to,
Yep.
for Alder Tierney's question, one thing I left out, we do have 3 firefighters in the queue with, hopefully to start here in the next few weeks, once we get past some of the testing and background checks, as well as a community care paramedic that's been picked out to start also. So there are 3 in the queue, and we are running another process right now, so.
okay. If there's nothing more on that item on the ARPA funding update, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Alder Tierney, and a second by Alder Killian. No discussion on that, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned, thank you. Council in 35 minutes.
Well, I mean, unless somebody else is not spending.